Jai Gurudev, welcome back. So, today, like I was saying to you, it's a blessed day as we have celebrated the appearance day of Sri Ramanujacharya, you know, the one who have bring forth the Sri Sampradaya and especially who have given the mantra of Om Namo Narayanaya to everybody. Yeah. I was reading one beautiful story actually which somebody sent to me. And in that story you can see his humility actually. How humble he is and also how disciplined he is with himself. And this story goes that, you see, when Ramanujacharya was getting old, in his old age, he lived till 120 years old, so it is quite old actually. And Sri Ramanujacharya, of course, he could not walk, so for going to take bath, he have to be hauled. So when he was going to take bath, there was always a Brahmin holding him. And then when he finished his bath, he will ask a low caste devotee to hold him. And of course that will upset some of the Brahmin. And they say, okay, fine, you treat everybody equally, but you have to, why you don't do like this, that when you go to bath, you go with a low caste, untouchable devotee, and when you come out from the bath, you're cleansed, and then you come out, then you take a Brahmin to hold upon. So Sri Ramanujacharya said in his humility, he said that I do it in that way because to remind myself that I should not be into that state of mind being proud into which caste I have been born to. So this shows that when somebody takes shelter of Sriman Narayana, when someone become a devotee of the Lord, that caste, whether it is high class or low class, touchable or untouchable, doesn't exist. Because everybody is viewed as being a devotee of the Lord. So for him, that was his humility, that perceived the Lord which is dwelling within the heart of those who truly long for him, because the Lord doesn't shine if one have not been purified through that longing and that love for the Lord himself. And also I find it so beautiful. Now today I was Swami Aniruddha and Swami Revati was listening to something in Portuguese, and I was very curious. It was loud, and I was wondering what it is. So I asked them, "What are you looking?" And it was in Portuguese. Of course, I could not understand. And then they were showing a TV show where a devotee from Portugal was talking about her spiritual path. Her name is Ana Bravo. And it makes me really joyful to see that she was not shy to talk about it, to go openly, yes, this is my path, this is who I am, and this is my guru which I'm following. So on this day, blessing to all devotees, who feel in the heart that they belong to that path and they belong to the Guru. Not many people really understand that relationship. So that's why you will see many people take shelter, then they go away, because they don't understand that Guru is the image that you can't change. Like you can't change your parents. Can you say tomorrow I take somebody else as my mother or father? No, you can't change your mother and your father. Unless you have been adopted, this is a different matter. But your father and mother stay always like that. So the same, Guru is even more than that. You think that in one life, if you are just say, okay, now I'm tired with this path, I go to another path, it's finished. For your mind here, yes, it's finished. But that relationship, do you think it finished just like that? It doesn't finish just like that. So it was nice to see, that she was excited to tell about her path, and really, and this is the greatness of a devotee. Like I was saying a few days ago, you see, Bhagavan Krishna said, my devotee find great joy in talking about me and bringing my teaching to everybody. So I'll ask now Jagopal to ask you a question.
Jai Gurudev Guruji, I have heard you say that humility is a grace that is given by the Guru. Could you talk a little bit about the steps one must take to attain this grace?
Yeah, you see, in the mindset of everyone, normally we will not be humble, because we like to be flattered. We like beautiful words, we like when people say thank you to us. We like when people praise us. Who don't like that? And even if you have done something for somebody and that person have not say thank you to you, how do you feel? Oh, I have done so much for that person, but not even a thank you. That at the back of your mind, you will start to think about it. So this is a natural state of human mind, because we like to be flattered. We like to run behind beautiful words. That's why when somebody tells you the truth, you feel hurt. But when somebody lies to you and tell you things that just you want to hear, you feel happy about it. So the mind run in a certain state. So when I say that being humble itself is a grace, doesn't mean that you will just sit idly and say, okay, I will wait when that grace will come upon me. No, you have to have a certain self-analysis into that. You have to start to watch yourself. Here, you see, when you sit in meditation, for example, who is watching what? Now, when you are sitting in meditation, you perceived, firstly, your mind. How is your mind thinking? Where is your mind running? And how is the interaction of the mind? So you perceive that from somewhere inside. So which means that there is somebody else which is looking at how the mind is thinking. So then you start to be cautious about how you think. So the first step is about changing and being aware of your thought itself. So when your thought is being transformed, there is positiveness. So what you see on the outside, you start to see it in a positive way. So when you look at the world in a positive way, positive things start to happen to you. You become like a magnet which attract the positivity. Of course, the mind time to time will fall back again into old samskaras, and of course the pride will come again. But this is when you're on the spiritual path, you be watchful. How you are towards yourself, how you think about you, and how you think about others also. So the purification doesn't mean just, okay, I purified myself, that's it. No, it's also how I purified myself about other people. how I view them. I view the world in a negative way, or I view it in a positive way. Not only me becoming positive and then yet the world is bad. Very often you see people like that. You see, they appear to be they say to themselves, yes, I'm a very good person. And I'm a very humble person. I'm a very nice person because I do nice things for the people which is nice to me. But yet, when sometimes you see that they perceive the world as something terrible, the world is bad, this is bad, that is bad, They can't perceive God in everything. So they are on the spiritual path, but yet they are not ready because they still have not fully purified how they see the outside. So you see, to perceive the Lord in the outside, only when the Lord Himself grace you. And for that, we need to start practicing the positiveness of how we see the world outside also. Because you see, if you put a glasses to see red, you will see everything red. So, to be humble becomes very difficult. Because it is your point of view on everything. Then you will say, yes, I am humble, but, you have seen that very often. Many people say, yes, I am humble, but that one is like this and that one is like that. No, when we look at the saint, for example, you see there is a certain humility in them, but they don't judge anyone. There is no judgment because they perceive, they know, even if they don't see it, or they don't perceive it physically, I'm talking about, but mentally inside, they know that everything is the grace of God. Not only the good things that happen in our life, also the bad things that happen in our life. It happened because the Lord wished it to happen. And He see that only through that purification that I can be transformed. Without this purification, I will not be transformed. So they perceive that in everything that they do around them, it's the grace of God. It have been given by God. So in that state of mind, like I said, Krishna said in the Bhagavad, my devotee bow down. Those devotees who realize that I'm in everything, they bow down to the water, to the air, to the trees, to the plant. They will bow down to each one another, knowing that everything is in the cosmic body of Bhagwan Himself. So nothing is outside of Him. Everything is a personification of the Lord Himself. So, like that, one developed a mind which is humble. So we train the mind to realize that everything is a grace. There is nothing outside of His grace. Even this physical body itself has been given to us by His grace. So in that state of mind, automatically one attract the divine humility. When you see, first it was one's own action of transforming the mind, and really remind oneself continuously that everything is the grace of God. So by constant reminding of that, Bhagwan, that mind itself becomes divine. So then it is not just, okay, I'm doing it, but it becomes so natural that in every moment it will be a reminder that, yes, God is with me. So there is not a single time that He is not with me. And He cares for me. He looks after me. Like that what Bhagwan Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 22, where He said, those devotees who surrender themselves to me, you know, who have made me the object of their worship, you know, I take care of them. I look after what they have, and I provide for them what they don't have. So I look after them, I care for them, I carry them, just like a mother carrying her child, you know, knowing, you know, the child can't talk, the baby can't talk, but the mother knows, you know, what the child need. So like that, you see, Bhagwan showered his grace upon such a devotee and transformed that devotee, you know, into a complete humble person. And again, like I'm telling you, humble doesn't mean that you sit idly and just say, okay, humility will fall down from the sky. No. First, you show your endeavor to change, that willingness to transform, that yearning to, you know, for the Lord Himself will change. So how He is, you start to reflect Him. And that is His grace. You know, and imagine how humble He is, you know. When you know, there's this story when there is Vashishta, no, not Vashishta. There is, you see, on the deity of Krishna, there is always a small, footprint. You know, Bhrigupadam is called. You know, so there is such a beautiful story to that. You know, where you see, you know, there was a discussion: who is the greatest among the Trinity? You know, Brahma, Vishnu, or Mahesh. So Bhrigu said to the rishi, let's test them. So Bhrigu went to Brahmalok. Brahma was in deep meditation, and Saraswati Devi was playing her veena. They didn't give notice to him. So he was upset that his father have not looked after him, you know, have not noticed him, but he was in deep meditation. So he left. So then he went to Shivalok. Shiva and Parvati was dancing. They also didn't notice. And of course he got angry and he just left. So then they went to Vaikuntha, and in Vaikuntha, you know, Sriman Narayana is sleeping and Mahalakshmi is pressing the feet of the Lord Himself. So as he was very angry already, he went there and hit the chest of Mahavishnu. Now, then when that happened, Sriman Narayana opened his eyes. In place of getting angry, what he did, he fell down at the feet of Bhrigu and started pressing the feet. That shocked Bhrigu, and started pressing the feet of Bhrigu. And he said, my chest is so hard, you know, and for sure while hitting me with your feet, that must have hurt your feet. So let me press it. So seeing that humility of the Lord, you know, Bhrigu bowed down to him and said, Bhagwan, you are the ultimate. You know, because you care for your devotee. It's not that you don't care for the devotee. You send a reminder and reminder. You care for each soul which is in this creation. You want them all to attain you. So you see, that grace of being humble come from Him, because He is humble. And if we are following His example, we have to be humble. And only through that love will awake. So.
Guruji, there are very strict rules for brahmacharis and sannyasis regarding sexual relations. But what are the rules or recommendations for devotees and followers? Does God care about these things?
Sorry, repeat again.
So there are strict rules for brahmacharis and sannyasis
Mhm.
regarding sexual relations. But what are the rules and recommendations for devotees and followers, and does God care about these things?
Does God care about this thing? I like that part, the last part of it, Actually, God does care for everybody to attain Him and to, realize Him. Otherwise, why He will not, as a care. But you see, of course, brahmacharis and brahmacharian is a different. They have taken a different path in their life. For them, they have a certain rule. But devotee living outside, normally they should also live in a righteous way, because you see, lust is easily developed in the mind of people. And when lust is developed into the mind, then one become dependent upon that, one become attached to that, and that become one reality. And then when one can't go from that, because when you are attached to that, you become addicted, to it. So he didn't say that, yes, you all are not allowed to have sex or whatever. No, he said, but how? But two persons who love each another, they are free to do whatever they want, But in which state they are doing it? Like in Bhagavad, Canto 10, verse 22, chapter 22, verse 26. Bhagavan said, those who surrender to me, who have given me their heart and life, for them the desire which arises inside of them doesn't create more desire. Just like a seeds which have been dry in the sun dry in the sun and cooked doesn't germinate. So you see, we have to understand what he said in that verse. When somebody which is, let's say, engaging into their personal relationship, of course there's a discovery, there is an understanding between the people. And but if it become lustful, but then the mind is diverted. The mind is not centered upon the Lord Himself. Here you have to see that He is saying that those mind which is focused upon Him, those who have surrendered to me, those who have given their heart and their life to me. Here is an example of a devotee itself, who have surrendered to Him and which is their mind have Him. He didn't say that desire will not awake inside of them. Desire will awake, yes, but how one take that desire, how one engage into that desire. You see, it's very important also. What is in the mind? Is it just to have sex and finish with it? Like very often it is in the world like this. People crave just for the sexual enjoyment, the sensual enjoyment. And then once that is finished, what is happening? Then you are not happy. So in this context, you see, we have to know our mindset itself. When you're engaging yourself into the sexual activities, where is your mind? You see, your mind is engaging into the action, or the mind is on God. So maybe you should try it. And that's what he means. And those whose life is devoted to God, that is not the most important thing. In the world nowadays, yes, when we look at very often the mind run into the sensual extreme, in the world outside. People say, oh yeah, I can't live without this, or I can't live without that. But right now you see, with the social distancing, very often you can see, you can live without many things. So it's all about a certain discipline with yourself, a certain discipline with your mind itself. And who is seated inside of your mind? Is it lust which is seated inside of your mind, or it is the image of the Lord which is seated inside of your mind?
Guruji, what is the difference between a manifested murti, a murti that you bless in a darshan, and those that get and live in with prana pratishta?
Look, the Lord is a Lord, It doesn't matter. So, whether it is bless, whether it is manifest, or whatever, or it is pranpratishta, the level of devotion from your heart, that's what is the most important thing. So, how do you view the deity? Do you view it just as a metal which have been formed as a certain aspect of the divine? Or you perceived that that is a representative, it is the deity him, or in a metal, but he resides within the devotional heart of a devotee. And through that devotional heart, that make the divine presence alive. So understand that. I'm not saying that the deity is not important. It is very important. But what makes it important is what that faith and that devotion that you have. That's why there's this famous verse that said, if you believe a stone to be a stone, it will just be a stone. But if you believe that stone to be a saligram or a shivalinga, that belief will make the divine manifest itself into that. Otherwise it will just be a stone. For many people which is atheistic and people who doesn't have any knowledge of that, for them they just see it as a symbol, nothing else. Look at Prahlad Maharaj, for example, as such a great example of that. You see, he could perceive the divine everywhere. When his father Hiranyakashipu asked him, is he in this pillar? He said, well, yes, he is in the pillar. And to that faith and that belief that he have, that the Lord is in that pillar, made Bhagwan himself take the form of Nrsingadev and came out from that pillar. To fulfill that, that faith which he have, when he said, yes, he's in the pillar. So with faith and devotion, when you're worshipping the deity, can the divine say, no, I am not that? That become the object of one devotion. So the Lord himself descend upon that and transform that mere metal or stone or wood into part of himself. He remind here that he's omnipresent, He's in everything, So everything, is the matter it is he is the essence of everything. So in that there is no different, It's all object of your love. That is the most important thing.
Jai Gurudev Guruji, on the spiritual path, many people focus on being attached to their good qualities and don't realize until too late that it creates a hypocrisy of being self-centered. Is there any way to avoid falling into this invisible trap?
Yes, like I said, you see, it's important to focus upon your positive quality, not to engage into your negative quality. Doesn't mean that the negative quality is not there. It is there. It is important to know that it is there. And when you know what it is there, then only you can transform it. I'm not saying getting rid of it, but transform it and give more positivity to it. You see? It is a transformation of things. It's not that something which is negative can't be transformed. Everything can be transformed when you are aware of it. So when you are aware of that, it's not about somebody else come and tell you, reminding you of your negative side. But when you yourself are aware of it, you have more strength of transforming it than when somebody else reminding this from you. So, but it is always there, and it will come. Time to time it will awake. But are you running towards it? Are you giving it power? Are you inviting it and making it your friend? This is a different matter. So, being aware that these negative are there, that is already the transformation of that into something positive. Because you see, when you are aware of it, you're already disarming it. So that state of mind is already transforming. That consciousness which is inside of you, it's a different awareness into it. When somebody doesn't notice their own negativity and thinking that they are perfect in everything, then this is a danger. Because as they are engaging into this delusion, they will also drag others into that delusion. That's why this morning when we were talking about, in Bhagavad, when Rishabha gave the teaching to his son, and he said, not everybody is eligible to be a guru, a father, a mother, a husband, or even a demigod, if they don't have the quality to liberate one from the cycle of birth and death. So you can see here that it is very difficult to assume, First he said, you can't, if you can't liberate your own children, you can't become a father and mother. So the role of a mother and father is firstly to be able to free them and give them an education so that they can go out of that cycle of birth and death. So again, he said, he reminded the devotees how to treat their children, how to look after their children. So in that context, you see that it is very important to be aware also how you are, and look at yourself, whether you have that positiveness inside of you, and be aware also of the negativity, but don't engage yourself into the negativity. If you engage yourself into negativity, say, yes, I'm going to look after this and I will change this and that, you are not yet strong into that. So firstly, educate yourself how to see this negativity. Because like Krishna said, in every negative there is equally good. In every good there is equally negative. It is always a view of how you see it, how you perceive it. So if you view that negativity as something which is negative, then it will become a bigger negative. It will not change and transform. But if you view what is in that negativity, why this negativity is there, that will bring a certain transformation. You see, it's like that. In life, what life have thrown to you was not always positive. There have been positive moments, there have been also negative moments. But all this have been contributing to your life progress, where it have bring you to where you are now. Let's look back. You will see that when something appears negative, at that precise moment, you can't look at it, devastated, oh my goodness, everything is finished. No. But sometimes when you have to shoot an arrow, you have to pull it back. Then you can, when you throw it, it will go further. So like that, when this kind of negativity is in your life, it's a time to pull yourself back and look at it. But look at it in a positive way. Because if you look at it in a negative way, you are already engaging yourself into that negativity. Then only negativity will be the outcome of that. But if you pull yourself back and observe it, observe that negativity, and then take that as a learning process and transform it and move forward, then you will have the grace of God. It reminds me of a story. Once a farmer was walking with his donkey, and all of a sudden the donkey run and fall down into a dry well. So the farmer tried to remove the donkey. With all his effort, it was not possible to remove the donkey. Then he started to think for himself. He said, "Oh, okay, it's an old donkey. Let that donkey be in that well. Anyway, what can we do?" So he went and get some, because that well needed to be filled. So he decided, okay, we will fill the well. It's an old donkey, died, it doesn't matter. So he went and get some friends and with some shovel, they came and start filling the well with earth, dirt. So when they start throwing the dirt inside, realizing what is happening, the donkey start to scream, and he was getting panic. But they didn't give any heed to the cry of the donkey. They keep shoveling the earth inside. The donkey, what he do? He start to shake the dirt from his body. He start tamping over the earth. So, as much as they were putting the dirt, the donkey was shaking itself, and he will use the earth to go above it. So after some time they could not hear anything. And to their amazement, when they have shoveled much earth inside, they saw the donkey near the surface of the well. So it is the same. You see, life will throw all kind of dirt to you due to your samskaras. But how you do? People will throw dirt on you. But always remember, use it always to your benefit. So be aware of it, but use them all for your benefit, not in an arrogant way. I'm not saying in a very cruel way to use it for in your own benefit, no. But use it to grow spiritually. Use it as an instrument to perceive that, yes, what you can learn from the situation also. So something else was coming to my mind, as we were talking about the sexual things, the question. There is this, when we look at in the Gopi Gita, we observed, one thing, when we observe the Gopi themselves, it is amazing, them who had their husband, children, with a dirty mind. Of course, when we look at that, people will think that, oh, okay, these people are very perfect, but their sole aim is Krishna. For them, when we look in Bhagavad, for example, when Sukadev Goswami was explaining about that, in chapter 10, canto 10, verse Canto 10, actually, he was explaining how the gopi loved Krishna, and he could not understand, and he had doubt inside of his mind, and he was thinking, this is very lustful how the gopi love Krishna. They love him in their beloved. But when you describe it, in Canto 10, 31, 19, it's described like, when the gopis describing Krishna, saying, your tender feet. We place, you place your tender feet on our hard breath. And we take your feet and put it on our breath with gentleness, with carefulness, so we don't hurt you, because you are the source of our life. You are our life itself. And we care for you about, we worry about your feet, when walking in the dense night in the forest, you come to us, we're worried about your feet. So you see, when we look at this, that relationship which the gopi had with Krishna, this amorous way, it, for the mind of Parikshit Maharaj, of course, it's very shocking. Also for the mind of many people will be shocking when they hear that. They say, what kind of God is that? But we are talking about the God of love, because for them, He is the source of everything. He is the source of love itself. There is now nobody else than Him. So when a devotee really realizes that for His pleasure, but we are doing everything gets transformed in servitude to Him. But it's not just mere saying to yourself, yes, I will engage in sexual act, now I will think about it in my mind. No, that desire, that heart which is burning inside of the gopi, they realize that this is the only aim of my life. I have been born for that only, to please Krishna. So it's not about the external reality of that relationship. It's that divine awareness, that whatever I'm doing is for His pleasure, not my pleasure, but for His pleasure. And this is how many lives, one take to come to that realization that whatever we do in this life is for the pleasure of Srimad Narayana itself, for the pleasure of Krishna Himself, So, realizing that, a devotee excels, like what in chapter, in Canto 10, 31:4, the gopis said to Krishna Himself, just to clear something, you are not the son of Yashoda only. No, you are the indweller, the witness of all, the witness which is the indweller of all beings, which is witnessing everything. You are the call of Brahma, Brahma have prayed for you to incarnate in this Yadu dynasty. But for what sake? You have incarnated yourself for the sake of saving this world. So here again you see that the gopis, they do realize that even if it is sexual, they don't even care, they don't even bother about the norms of the outside reality. They know that Krishna is not just a human being. They have meditated for so long to have Krishna. And here Krishna is. What else there is? They were the son of Agnidev, who have meditated thousands of years, penance. And it was them in the Dandaka forest, when Ram was passing by. They run towards him. And instantly, they were, like in the Bhagavad it said, but their heart start to feel a longing, the heart start to run towards, as a beloved is running towards his lover. So, like that, in the mind they were running. Then Krishna said, Rama said, stop them. Said, listen, in this life I can't fulfill your wish in that way. But next life, be born in Gokul, and then I shall fulfill your wish. So you see, you have to understand that aspect of Krishna, the body of Krishna himself, is not bound by like a normal human body. It's not you can say, yeah, oh, Krishna have done that, also I will do it. No. Oh, the gopis have done that, vice versa, everybody will just engaging into that. No, you have to understand that the body of Krishna, it's a body beyond the three gunas itself. It transcends the natural law itself. So, and also you have to see that they were not thinking about themselves. They are thinking that my life itself here is for only one purpose, to attain him. So that mind is not attached to anything which is material. That mind have already transformed itself into divine completely. So it is that what our life is. Our life is in this servitude to the divine itself in that way. So it's not just to say, yes, let's engage into a certain action, but for what purpose is action? For who are we engaging, in serving who? So that must be clear inside the devotees, So that the gopis are the example of great surrender. We also have to have that kind of surrender and that kind of love, But we forget completely about ourselves and place Giridhariji as the center of whatever we do in our life. Jai Gurudev.